Netanyahu and I have something in common. What is it? I'll tell you right now, it's a hernia. He's got a hernia. And I thought to myself, I wonder if he's going to Shouldice. No, he flew somebody from Shouldice in. My doctor is in Israel right now doing Shouldice surgery for Benjamin Bibi Netanyahu. There you go. Probably not. Probably. But does he have a mesh? Does Bibi Netanyahu have a worse surgery prospect than I was offered? I mean, that's interesting to me. Thoughts like that not preoccupy me, but fly into my head sometimes. I was walking through the Tower of London, and they have Henry VIII's apartments, right, set up. And we walked past Henry VIII's bedroom, and the bed in his bedroom. And I thought to myself, I've got a nicer bed than that guy did. Sucker. Right? And so, like, I think to myself, compared to kings of yore, my life's pretty okay, right? Compared to Benjamin Netanyahu, my hernia surgery, well, it's pretty okay. And I mean, like, I'm sure his hernia surgery is going to go pretty okay. But I know people with the mesh, and the mesh isn't, like, a great outcome. And people... Honestly, people who watch this show, thank you so much for your support and that you care. And people message me en masse. I had lots of messages saying, please don't go and get the mesh. It's a terrible idea. I have the mesh and I have problems with the mesh. Do this other thing instead. And I did, and I'm glad that I did. I wonder if anybody cared about Bibi enough to tell him that. All right, we've got to start. Lots to get to. Let's get to it first. April Fools? April Fools. I love April Fools. And not Twitter. Back when Reddit was good, because Reddit was really good way back in before 2012. And then Mitt Romney and Barack Obama. And then after that, the whole thing kind of went downhill very, very rapidly. But April Fools on the internet used to be nothing but fun. Like, it used to be just fun. And now I think that we've been bamboozled. And I think we've been bamboozled for a while. I think that there's something about this calendar thing that we live in that is hinky. I've talked about it before. Turtles have 13 big spots in the middle and 28 spots around their shells. They figured it out. And he's going to talk about turtles in the video here. But we're supposed to have 364 divided by 13 is 28. So 13 months of 28 days is the calendar that we used to go by. And this guy goes even further. And I think that it's interesting. And I wondered, why would they do that? Like, is Julius Caesar that full of himself that he thinks he's more important than the gods? And why would the Romans be cool with Julius Caesar declaring, I mean, he was a god, right? If you're a Roman emperor, you were also a god. So maybe the citizens were like, all right, God Caesar has said, Julius Caesar has said this, and now the sun and the moon and everything follows his decree, right? Maybe not. But this guy says, it has been done, and I think I agree with him, to distance humanity from our creator. And I think I'll go one step further. People who were close to their creator would never, ever fall for the lies of the communists that we've fallen for now. The transgender ideology, a lot of the things, the ways that we behave, humanity behaves right now, is based on this fatalistic ideology of, send the asteroid, we're all going to burn ourselves out anyway, like the planet's dying, society's sick and dying, all of us are, dying, we might as well just end it all. And that's not at all the message that a society connected with their creator would follow. They just wouldn't. So I think that's one of the main reasons. Here's this guy. We'll listen to the first minute, and then I'm going to jump forward to the last minute. Here we go.
Did you know that you're missing a month of your life every year? We're supposed to have 13 months of 28 days exactly, plus one day that represents the renewal. I mean, girls' periods are every 28 days, the ocean tides are every 28 days, the moon's cycle is every 28 days. Why do you think it's called a month? Because the original name was derived from the moon cycle, which was called a moonth, every 28 days. And I'm sure you've heard of the idea that we live on the back of some cosmic turtle floating in outer space. Well, that's because turtles actually keep a calendar of this on their back. Most turtles have 13 sections in the middle with 28 days around the rim. The Native Americans figured it out and used the turtle as a calendar. The Bible even says in Job 12, 7 through 10, that all creation knows that God made it. But why has the world distorted God's perfect calendar? And where did the 13th month go? Well, what does sept mean? April is where we get the word aprilis, or aprio in Latin, which means to appear or to open. Yeah, April is the first month, means to open. May is actually named after a demon or a god, a Nephilim. June times 28 is 364, plus the one day, which represents renewal to make it 365. That day also represents resurrection. Now, what day did Jesus die? It's actually April 3rd that a lot of historians assume, but what do you want to bet the calendar's been shifted a few days? And it was probably closer to April 1st. Hence the name April Fool's Day. Because you're a fool for believing a calendar that makes absolutely no sense and not recognizing the day that Jesus died for humanity. That's why they call it April Fool's Day. And demons celebrate April Fool's Day because the world has forgotten the day that your Lord died for you. All of this calendar shifting, they did it so that you cannot honor God's feast and holidays. They did it to confuse you. I mean, God specifically says, keep my days. He says, keep the Sabbath. That's part of his commandment. God wants you to honor his holidays. And so that's why the calendar's been shifted. So you can't honor God's holidays, and you don't even know what day.
Sorry, I've just had it muted. I apologize. But listen to Catherine Austin Fitts. They're spending a lot of money. Here they're showing 4 seasons, and they're spending a lot of money to convince people that the seasons are being muddied, etc., spraying the skies to change the temperature. But this is yet another similar bamboozle, similar to the shifting of the calendar, right? And so we're in a situation where they're not telling us the truth, and they are spraying the skies to confuse you and distance you from the world the Lord made. And that's evil. Like, that's really evil, really evil. Let's talk about Easter. So what do you think? Do you think this is a good explanation for why somebody would endeavor to bamboozle humanity, right? And create something like April Fools to point and laugh at the April Fools who don't understand the connection with their creator? Interesting. It's an interesting take, right? Justin Trudeau, after lots of backlash for his, ridiculousness for celebrating Greek Independence Day, Ramadan, and Holi, and not Good Friday, Justin Trudeau heard about it from his constituents. So Easter, by 9 a.m., he had posted, "Happy Easter, whether you're celebrating this holiday or holy day by attending church services with your neighbors, hunting for Easter eggs with your kids, or spending time with your loved ones. I hope you find joy in the togetherness that Easter brings." And Bradshaw says, "We know this is not a happy Easter from Trudeau. He ignored Good Friday. Veterans Affairs called Easter March holiday season. So Trudeau's ex-handler put out a message because he saw the backlash." I think that that's probably pretty true. Here's Veterans Affairs. They saw the backlash too, and they say, "Whether you're enjoying a special celebration with loved ones or serving far away from home, we hope all veterans and their families have a happy Easter. All Canadians, thank you for your bravery and sacrifice. Canada remembers," they say. Man, I don't think they remember who they're supposed to be working for. Kian Bexty highlights all of the transgender day of visibility nonsense. One of them anyway. He says the mayor of Calgary, Joni Gondek, announces transgender day of visibility in Calgary today, Sunday, March 31st, the most holy day of the March holiday season. Ha! Tongue in cheek there, Kian. Leah says they know exactly what they're doing. This is the Canadian Civil Liberties Association, and they say today is Trans Day of Visibility. And Ontario Provincial Police say it's Transgender Day of Visibility. We celebrate the lives and contributions of transgender people. Men can't be women, and this transgender thing came out of nowhere. 5 years ago, it didn't really exist. 6 years ago, maybe you had some people mutilating themselves, but never could anybody switch their gender? Never. And like Mrs. Doubtfire existed, and that was Robin Williams in drag. And Tootsie existed, and that was Dustin Hoffman in drag. And there were television shows where men had to dress up as women in order to get apartments, and people thought it was funny. And it turns out that they were just seeding the ground for this nonsense. But you can't change genders. There's nothing in the world. You can mutilate yourself, right? You can make yourself look like a lady. Right? Very convincing too. But you'd still be a man, a mutilated man, but a man nonetheless. And it's really, really strange that we're spending a lot of money to bend this reality for people who are open to it, essentially. And if you say, no, that's not real, that can't happen, in a very, very fact-based way. Like biology exists and it doesn't care about your feelings. People will get really upset with you. Buzz TV says the CN Tower will be lit in light blue, pink, and white tonight for International Transgender Day of Visibility. Really, really. And that's not just it, right? There's a whole bunch of other places, and we're going to go through it during the speech discussion as well. Here's the Liberal Party. And I just thought this was interesting. It doesn't really go with Easter. Hold on, we'll talk about that in just a second. Matt Couch says, Happy Easter. Jesus rose from the dead today. P.S. Changing your gender image is going against being made in the image of God. The hypocrisy of this dolt is beyond comprehension. So President Biden's doing this nonsense as well with the transgender ideology stuff. And he says, today on Transgender Day of Visibility, I have a simple message for all trans Americans. I see you. You are made in the image of God and you're worthy of respect and dignity. And this guy is saying, like, the whole thing about transgender people is they're not happy with the body God gave them. And we're saying us as demon-loving men can mutilate your body and change it to what your mental illness tells you it is. That's not a godly message. That's not a happy message. That is, in fact, totally against the message that our creator has given to us. Okay? This is demonic. This is insanity. And the demonic insanity has infected, that might be a good title, has infected everywhere. Everywhere. And I think that the demonic insanity is only possible because people have been disconnected with their connection to their creator. And because you wouldn't believe this. You would say, well, if God wanted me to be a woman, then I would have been a woman. But I'm not a woman. I'm a man. And therefore, God didn't want that. And so, what? Honestly, image of God. Come on. Come on. And I thought this was funny. It kind of goes into electioneering. Okay, we'll put it in the election spot. I didn't realize that I had an election spot today. So that's Trans Easter, everyone. And I think the April Fool's thing really does a good job at explaining how this all happened. It's on purpose. Further, here's a little bit on controlling language. I thought this was quite good. Quite good. Worth the 2 minutes, certainly. Here we go.
I know when you say, hello, my name is Kim, my pronouns are she, her. What you will say is that you are just telling me how you want to be addressed so that I can speak to you respectfully.
Pronoun etiquette.
But we're both quite clever, you and I. And we know that that's really not what's happening, is it? You see, when I address you, when I speak to you, I use something in grammar called second-person pronouns. I'm the speaker, the first person, and you are the second person. And when I'm speaking to a second person, what I do is I use the pronouns you, your, yours, and so on. So I'll say, hi, how are you? How was your day? Is that your car over there? Right? It would be really strange if I somehow managed to slip in a he or a she. Hello, how is she? We don't do that. It sounds completely wrong. When I'm talking to you, the second person, about a third person who's not here, or if I'm just thinking about that third person, then I'll use the third person pronouns. Those are the ones like he, she, hers, his, etc. So his name is John. She's not a very nice person. That's his car. That's her house, and so on. And the difference is quite clear. So when you, quite uninvited, declare your pronouns to me, in spite of what you might say, you are not telling me how to address you. You are not telling me how you like to be spoken to. What you're telling me is how I must think about you and how I must speak to everyone else in the world when I refer to you. You might think it's okay to control me in that way. You may think that you have a good justification for doing so. But at the very least, let's be honest about what you're doing, because that's how I like to be spoken to.
Ooh, right? I like it. Savage, savage. And he's not wrong, right? He's exactly right, I think. Also, my pronouns are attack helicopter. Vice Guard is reporting this. Scotland is coming into force with their hate speech laws, or their speech laws anyway. And one of the world's strictest hate speech laws came into force in Scotland. It's reporting Vice Guard. The law, championed by First Minister Hamza Yousaf, That's a very Scottish name, right? I'm sure he's very Scottish. Will carry prison sentences up to 7 years for statements deemed to stir up hate on the grounds of religion, sexual orientation, and gender identity. So you're not allowed to say that man's not a woman. J.K. Rowling's already in hot water, and there are a couple other people who are in hot water because they're refusing to kowtow to this bonkers ideology. So that's very interesting. Here's another 2-minute video. Apologies for the length of the videos today. And Kath says, this was the SNP's Siobhan Brown trying to defend, can you believe I said that name right? Trying to defend the HCA to Justin's extremely rational, highly skillful, and fatally polite questions at 8:20 this morning. These questions we all want answering. These are the right questions. So he's asking, like, how is this possible? How can police decide if this is a hate crime? Here we go.
The reason I asked you about misgendering is that there are some people, including critics of J.K. Rowling, who say it should be including one former SNP councillor who said recently of J.K. Rowling, she's not entitled to make people feel uncomfortable and to misgender someone. So just to be absolutely clear, if someone misgenders, in other words, calls a trans woman a man, online, a specific individual, you're saying that is not a crime in your view under this Act?
Justin, it would be a police matter for them to assess what happens, but I do need to reiterate.
Right. So, sorry, just to be clear. So it would be something that someone could complain about, and there would be an investigation.
It could be reported, and it could be investigated. Whether or not the police would think it was criminal is up to Police Scotland for that. But this
Well, hang on, up to Police Scotland. So what would their decision-making process be?
But that would be an operational decision, Justin, and it would not be for me as minister to dictate what the police in an operation.
But they've had, so each police officer, not all of them have done it, but each police officer has had 2 hours online training. On the basis of that, you are saying it's up to them to decide.
They have had 2 hours training, but there's other things in place with Police Scotland. There's dedicated 24/7 lines for officers if they want to speak to anyone and get guidance on it. There's been a lot of training within the last year.
But does that training, sorry to interrupt, does that training yes. then tell them what it is that they need to base their decision on?
Yes, I believe so, because what has happened...
Right, so what is it?
Yeah.
She doesn't answer. What is it? Wow. Can't answer, just bark, right? It's very, very, very unnerving because they're trying to bring these laws in and they're not constitutional. Nobody can prescribe how you think of someone else, right? No one, absolutely no one. Even if that person tells you that they can and that they're within the law to do so, they cannot and they are not. They don't have control of your brain. Your brain is yours to do with as you wish. And thoughts can come into it, and you can express those thoughts. And we live in a free country where that is supposed to be protected by law. Maxime Bernier is responding to Justin Trudeau, and he says, Justin Trudeau says, a note to every trans Canadian on Trans Day of Visibility. They're all doing this nonsense. I'm not going to read it because I'm not going to validate or encourage any of this nonsense, but Maxime Bernier is talking against it. He says, when will this insanity end? We must stop promoting mental illness and body mutilation, not make it more visible. And we must treat as criminals, teachers, and psychiatrists who encourage confused minors to transition and doctors who castrate and mutilate them. Yes. Absolutely. Jonathan Kay says, absolutely mind-boggling stupidity from CBC News and Julia Wong, CBC. This article provides a fawning profile of a man who wants to play football against women. Do men have a competitive advantage in football? The CBC has no idea. It's a complete mystery. So here's the CBC's article posted March 30th. Is there really a competitive advantage? Debate over trans athletes, tests, science, and inclusion. No, it doesn't. All we have to do is say that's biologically rare. It's very rare. I'm sure there are instances, but those people are not majority, and those people are certainly not the people we're talking about in this article. And if you're a man biologically, yeah, you have an advantage over a woman. Of course you do. And anybody who writes a headline like this is lying to you, okay? Debate over competitive advantages. Doctors say more research is needed to determine whether trans athletes truly have a competitive physical advantage. Dr. Anwalt, a professor of medicine and an endocrinologist at the University of Washington in Seattle, said there's negligible difference in power, speed, and strength between boys and girls pre-puberty. Yeah, well, we're not talking about pre-puberty, are we? It's a grown man. Here's somebody talking about how easy it is for a CBC news plant to get onto hormones when the only diagnosis she's done is I watched a YouTube video and this other person said they were trans and it made them feel better. And so now I'm trans, and they were given hormones and a script for, I don't know, double mastectomy, but certainly on the way. No parents, 14 years old. Here we go.
The most amazing part of this story is that the CBC did this. They did an incredible piece of investigative journalism, like real journalism. They sent a 14-year-old actress undercover into a pediatric gender clinic somewhere in Quebec. She told this story, it's filmed, and she tells this story to the doctor. She has an eating disorder, and she went on YouTube or whatever, and she came across a trans influencer who also had an eating disorder, but realized that they were trans, and that's why they had the eating disorder. So then they transitioned and everything was wonderful. The problem solved. They feel great about themselves. She's telling this story to the gender clinician. Within 5 minutes, the clinician has asked her if she wants a mastectomy. Within 7 minutes, I think there's talk of a hysterectomy because internal organs can trigger dysphoria. And within 9 minutes, she's got a prescription for testosterone. No parents there. This is a 14-year-old girl telling the story that she basically self-diagnosed as trans because she saw someone online. So incredible piece of journalism, great article that came out with it. And then trans activists, a couple of weeks later, smashed the windows of the CBC headquarters in Montreal. And then they released this statement, bonkers, totally crazy statement. We have the right to experiment in our bodies, even if we make a mistake, we have the right to make these mistakes. The state should not be interfering. And then a whole lot of absolutely outrageous accusations about the far right. And if you carry on reporting like this transphobic reporting, we will fight back again. There will be further retaliation. That's what the state.
So there you go. Very peaceful, just like Palestinian protesters, right? Here's more liberal Looney Tunes, and this is Carla Quattro, and she says, trans rights are human rights, and there's nothing common sense about exclusion and discrimination. I firmly believe that as leaders in sport, we have a responsibility to support the full inclusion of trans persons in the Canadian sports system. People who are more interested, like I never played sports. I wasn't a sporting kind of kid. I like computers. I still like computers. If there's an option to do like a civilization tournament or go and play a game of some kind, I would probably prefer to do the civilization tournament. So, I mean, everybody likes different things. However, if you're more interested in mutilating your healthy body in order to feed the demons in your head that tell you that cutting your healthy sex organs off will make you feel better, you're probably not an elite athlete. You're probably not. But you may become one if you take that male body and pit it against females in a competition, right? And become an elite athlete. And I think that's wrong. I don't think that we should be doing anything like that. It seems like people who are going through surgeries and taking hormones and things like that, sports should be the last thing on their mind. Why are these liberals, and she doesn't look healthy, does she? She doesn't look well. She doesn't look like somebody. There's a whole bunch of things that I'm just thinking like red flag, red flag, red flag. And as I was watching this video, and I was thinking like, why would anybody take advice from this woman? She has no idea what she's talking about. It's insane. She's not an elite athlete, clearly. And I mean, in a situation where we're talking about sports and we're talking about inclusivity and all this other crap, why are we putting aside the fact that this person has been like mutilated by a medical system that is pursuing something that's impossible, completely impossible? Why is that being ignored? Secondary to this person wants to play lacrosse with the boys or with the girls. And it's like, no, man, no, you've got other things going on. Clearly, if you wanted to play lacrosse, you should have maybe been in a lacrosse league rather than in surgery. And people can find that intolerant. I don't particularly care all that much. I think what they're doing to the children or anybody in pursuit of changing your sex is cruel and evil. And I can't believe that anybody would allow it. And these people advocating for like, we need to have transgender people in sports, they've completely lost the plot. They've completely lost it. It is, they're round the bend talking about a non-consequential, it's like you've gotten into a catastrophic car accident and somebody's gets out of the car and they're fine and they're just like still eating their ice cream or something like that. They're not talking about the thing at hand. They're like, oh, well, there's a scrape on the side here, on the bumper back here. It's like, well, the car's friggin' well totaled. moron. So taking us away from the things we should be talking about and creating random issues about people participating in sports, they're not even in the ballpark of talking about the most appropriate thing at all. At all. Not for the people in the sport, not for the people who have mutilated themselves. Nobody is served by this person at all. And so it's just bonkers. It's so crazy. Casey is highlighting this. This is more speech related, not trans related, but it's interesting. Casey says, Tucker Carlson's been banned from speaking at his prep school alma mater, St. George's School, despite an invitation from students. Did you know Tucker Carlson went here? Oh, cool. Let's invite him. Maybe he'll come back. No, he can't because, he says that man can't be a woman. So can't come here. Wild. John Barlow MP, let's talk about the April 1st tax hike. Mushrooms Canada sharing their concerns with Justin Trudeau's April 1st 23% carbon tax increase. The cost of the carbon tax for our mushroom farm members will be $7.4 million in 24. By 2030, it will be more than $16 million. It will double. It's time to spike the hike. And so there's a whole letter here talking about how these costs make food production more difficult and so on and so forth. And yeah, obviously, I mean, maybe not obviously because they're going forward with this insanity anyway. But as I said before, we're also mutilating healthy children's sex organs in the pursuit of demonic changing of your gender. So, right? Nah. Brutal, says the food professor. Let's talk about carbon taxes further. Today, the CBC aggressively countered anti-carbon tax advocates by featuring Chris Reagan on as many shows as possible. Not only is he a board member of the Trudeau-friendly Climate Change Institute, but Reagan was the first signatory of the pro-carbon tax open letter by economists, right? So he's very, very biased. Here's a miner outlining how the green energy transition will destroy our environment, I guess. As a miner for 40 years, says John, I've worked in various mines around the world: gold, platinum, copper, coal, lead, zinc, oil, and salt. I'm going to tell you something, and here it is. We will destroy the earth in the name of green energy. Follow along and I'll explain. Mining Watch Canada is estimating that 3 billion tons of mined metals and minerals will be needed to power the energy transition, a massive increase especially for 6 critical minerals: lithium, graphene, copper, cobalt, nickel, and rare earth minerals. Over the next 30 years, 7.5 billion of us will consume more minerals than the last 70,000 years or the past 500 generations, which is more than all of the 108 billion humans who have ever walked the earth. Mining requires the extraction of solid ores, often after removing the vast amounts of overlying rock. Then the ore must be processed, creating an enormous quantity of waste, about 100 billion tons a year, more than any other human-made waste stream. Purifying a single ton of rare earths requires at least 200 cubic meters of water, which then becomes polluted with acids and heavy metals. On top of that, imagine the destruction and energy required to obtain these essential metals. 18,000 pounds of purified rock to produce 2.2 pounds of vanadium, 35,000 pounds of ore for 2.2 pounds of cerium, 110,000 pounds of rock for 2.2 pounds of gallium, 2,645,000 pounds of ore to get 2.2 pounds of lectium. Also, staggering amounts of ore are needed for other metals. By 2035, demand is expected to double for germanium, quadruple for tantalum, and quintuple for palladium. Sorry if I'm getting all of this wrong. The scandium market could increase 9-fold and the cobalt market by a factor of 24. The potential demand for rare metals is exponential. We are already consuming over 2 billion tons of metals every year, the equivalent of more than 500 Eiffel Towers a day. There's nothing refined about mining. It involves crushing rock and then using a concoction of chemical reagents such as sulfuric and nitric acid, and a long and highly repetitive process using many different procedures to obtain a rare earth concentrate close to 100% purity. As rare metals have become ubiquitous in green and digital technologies, the exceedingly toxic sludge they produce has been contaminating water, soil, the atmosphere, and the flames of blast furnaces. Do you think solar panels are green? Think again. There's nothing green about solar panels. Do you know that we clear-cut forests, not for panel placement, but for wood needed to produce the panels? Don't believe me? Have a read. There's a link. And he goes on further. So it's not green, and it is very expensive, and it is actually not going to solve our problem. I don't think. Whatever. And that doesn't matter. All that matters is that we are being controlled and that we don't ask too many uncomfortable questions. Right? And that's really what they want. They want us to believe that the green agenda is green and good for us. And so we'll continue doing it for as long as we believe that, until we don't believe it. And at which point we'll be told we're racist or something like that, until that no longer works, and then they'll try something else. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful